The great chamber of the Galactic Council sat at the heart of Nexus Prime, a station so large that it had its own weather. 12 species had built it together over 3,000 years. They had carved their history into its walls. They had written their laws into its stone. And on this day, they gathered to decide if a 13th species would live or die. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked to the center of the speaking floor. She was small compared to most of the aliens watching her. The Dorvathi delegates towered above her like living mountains, their ancient stone-like skin cracked with age. The Volnoxi coiled in their water tanks, their tentacles pressing against the glass. The Morthene sat in perfect stillness, their 4 eyes tracking her every movement. Elena felt their judgment. Humanity had only joined the Council 60 years ago. They were still children here, still proving themselves. She touched the control panel, and the chamber went dark. Above them all, a hologram bloomed into existence. It showed a world of red deserts and purple skies. Mountains rose like broken teeth against the horizon. Rivers of liquid metal crawled across the surface. "This is Verath 7, Elena said. Her voice carried through the translation systems, reaching every delegate in their own language. It sits at the edge of known space. Its sun is dying. In 40 years, maybe less, the star will expand and swallow this world whole." The hologram shifted. Now it showed creatures moving across the red sand. They were tall and thin, with shells of black chitin covering their bodies. 6 legs carried them forward. 4 arms folded against their chests. Their heads were smooth and eyeless, but covered in sensors that could feel vibrations from miles away. "These are the Kethari," Elena continued. 3 billion of them live on Verath 7. They have cities. They have culture. They have families, in their own way. And they have no idea that their sun is about to kill them all. Silence filled the chamber. Elena let it stretch. "They have no space travel," she said. "They have never left their atmosphere. They do not know that other stars exist or that other life fills this galaxy. In 40 years, they will burn. Every single one of them. Every city they built. Every song they ever sang. Every memory they ever made. Gone." The Volnoxi delegate moved first. Ambassador Crixtal rose from his tank on mechanical legs that dripped water across the floor. His voice came wet and bubbling through his translator. "We know of the Kethari," he said. "Our scouts studied them 2 centuries ago. They are dangerous, Ambassador. They are hive-minded creatures driven by instinct and aggression. They killed every other intelligent species on their world. They are not victims. They are predators." Elena nodded. She had expected this. They were predators, she agreed. Millions of years ago. Evolution made them that way. But they have changed. They build now instead of hunt. They create instead of destroy. Should we judge them for what their ancestors did before they were even conscious? "Yes," Crixtal said. "Because what lives in the blood does not die. You release them into the galaxy, and you release a plague. They will spread. They will consume. They will do what their nature demands." A new voice entered the debate. Elder Morvath of the Dorvasi spoke slowly, each word rumbling like distant thunder. He was the oldest being in the chamber. Some said he remembered when the council was first formed. "There is precedent," Morvath said. "The quarantine doctrine exists for a reason. Species that pose existential risk to the galactic community are to be contained. If containment is not possible, they are to be left to natural extinction. We did not create this rule out of cruelty. We created it out of necessity." Elena turned to face him. "With respect, Elder, the Kethari pose no threat while they sit on their dying world. They cannot hurt anyone. They can only wait to die. And if we save them, what then? Then we give them a chance to prove themselves." Laughter rippled through the Volnoxi delegation. Crixtol's tentacles writhed with amusement. "Prove themselves," he repeated. "You humans and your faith in redemption. You think every monster is just a friend you have not made yet. It is charming. It is also stupid." Elena felt heat rise in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "We think every species deserves a chance," she said. "That is not stupidity. That is hope." The debate continued for hours. Delegates spoke for and against. The Mortheans stayed silent, as they always did, watching and calculating. The Dovahthi quoted ancient history. The Volnoxi quoted biology. And through it all, Elena waited. Finally, Elder Morvath raised his massive hand. The chamber fell silent. "We will vote," he said. "The question is simple. Should we authorize a rescue mission for the Cathari species? Should we save them from extinction?" Elena stepped forward one last time. "Before you vote," she said, "I want you to look at them again." The hologram changed. Now it showed a Cathari city at sunset. The buildings rose in spirals of hardite shell, glowing gold and orange in the fading light. In the streets below, Cathari moved in complex patterns, their movements almost like a dance. Young ones chased each other through the crowds. Workers carried materials to construction sites. And in the center of the city, a great tower rose toward the sky. "They built that tower to study the stars," Elena said quietly. "They do not know what stars are. They cannot see them with their senses. But they know something is up there. Something beyond their world. They have spent generations trying to understand it." She paused. "They want to know. They want to learn. They are reaching for the universe, even though they have no idea how vast it is. And we are going to let them burn because we are afraid of what they might become." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every delegate she could. "Should we save them?" Elena asked. "I believe we should. I believe that is why we built this council. Not to judge who deserves to live, but to make sure life has a chance to prove itself." The voting began. One by one, the delegations cast their choices. The Velnoxi voted no. The Dorvathi voted no. The Mortheans, surprising everyone, voted yes. The smaller species split down the middle. When the final count came, the chamber held its breath. 7 in favor, 5 against. The Cathari would live. Elder Morvath rose slowly, his ancient joints grinding. "The motion passes," he announced. "The human delegation will lead the rescue operation. They will be responsible for the Cathari integration into galactic society. They will bear the consequences, whatever they may be." He looked directly at Elena. "You have won, Ambassador. I hope you understand what you have done. We have just changed the future of this galaxy. There is no going back now." Elena nodded. Her hands were shaking, but her voice held steady. "We understand, Elder, and we accept the responsibility." As she walked out of the chamber, she felt the weight of 3 billion lives settling onto her shoulders. 3 billion aliens who did not know she existed. 3 billion futures that she had just promised to protect. Behind her, she heard Crixtol whisper to his aide. "Remember this day," the Velnoxi said. "Remember it well? The humans have made a terrible mistake. And one day, the entire galaxy will pay for it." Elena kept walking. She did not look back. The Cathari were going to live. Everything else was a problem for tomorrow. 5 years after the council vote, a ship called the Observer's Truth descended through the purple clouds of Varus 7. Inside sat a Dovahthi named Torth, sent by Elder Morvath to report on humanity's progress. Torth expected to find a simple relocation project. Ships moving aliens from one world to another. Basic terraforming. Standard refugee protocols. What he found instead made his ancient blood run cold. The human base camp spread across a valley between 2 mountains. But it was not a camp anymore. It had become something else. Human structures stood side by side with Cathari hives. The two architectures wove together like fingers interlocking. Humans walked among the Cathari without fear. The Cathari moved around humans without aggression. A young human woman met Torath at the landing pad. Her name was Dr. Sarah Chun, and she led the xenobiology team. "Welcome to New Dawn Colony," she said with a smile. "Let me show you what we have built." They walked through the settlement together. Torath watched everything with growing unease. In one building, human engineers stood at workbenches beside Cathari workers. The aliens held tools in their 4 hands, building devices Torath did not recognize. The humans guided them patiently, showing them techniques, celebrating their successes. "They learn fast," Sarah explained. "Faster than we expected. Their neural structures are different from ours, but they adapt incredibly well. 6 months ago, none of them had ever seen a machine. Now they are building their own designs." Torath said nothing. His observers were recording everything. They moved to another section of the colony. Here, humans sat in circles with Cathari, communicating through a complex system of vibrations, gestures, and simple sounds. The Cathari responded, their eyeless heads tilting as they processed new concepts. "Language acquisition," Sarah said. "We developed a bridge system, part vibration, part sign language, part pure mathematics. It took us 2 years, but we can actually talk to them now. Real conversations, ideas, feelings, questions." "Questions?" Torath asked. Sarah's smile grew wider. "They ask so many questions. Where do humans come from? What are stars? Why did we help them? They want to understand everything." They continued walking. Torath noticed something strange. Some Cathari moved differently from the others. They walked alone instead of in groups. They stopped to examine things individually. They made choices that the hive had not directed. "What is wrong with those ones?" Torath asked, pointing. Sarah paused. Her expression became careful. "Nothing is wrong with them," she said slowly. "They are awakened. Explain." Sarah led him to a quiet building at the edge of the colony. Inside, a single Cathari sat before a window, looking out at the sunset. It did not move when they entered. It simply waited. "This is Keth Severa," Sarah said. She was a worker in the northern hive. 3 years ago, something changed in her. She started thinking for herself. The Cathari turned toward them. Even without eyes, Torath felt her attention. "The stone giant has many fears," Keth Severa said through a translator device on her chest. "His heart beats with worry. He thinks we are becoming dangerous." Torath stiffened. "You can sense that?" "I can sense many things. I could not before. I was part of the hive, and the hive thought for me. Now I think for myself. It is strange. It is wonderful. It is sometimes painful." Sarah sat down near the Cathari. "We did not do this to them," she told Torath. "We simply gave them new experiences, new information, new possibilities. For some Cathari, that was enough to trigger individual consciousness. The potential was always there. It just needed the right conditions to emerge." "How many?" Torath demanded. "How many have you awakened?" "About 12,000 so far. And the number grows every month." Torath felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. "Do you understand what you have done?" he asked. "You have taken a hive species and given them individuality. You have broken their natural order. You have created chaos inside their minds." Keth Severa made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. "The stone giant thinks he knows our minds better than we do," she said. "He thinks the hive was peace and individuality is chaos. He is wrong. The hive was sleep. This is waking up." She stood, all 6 legs unfolding with grace. "I remember being part of the collective. I remember feeling the Queen's will flow through me like water. There was comfort in that. There was safety. But there was no me. There was only us. Now there is a me. I can choose. I can dream. I can want things that the hive does not want. And what do you want? Torath asked. Keth Severa walked to the window. I want to see the stars that the humans showed us pictures of. I want to build things that no Cathori has ever built. I want to meet other species and learn their stories. I want to live a life that belongs to me. She turned back to face him. Is that dangerous, stone giant? Is wanting to be free something that should frighten you? Torath had no answer. He spent 3 more days at the colony. He watched humans teaching Cathari to read. He watched Cathari teaching humans about their history, their beliefs, their dreams. He saw awakened Cathari choosing their own names, their own paths, their own futures, and he saw something else. The Cathari who remained in the hive were not angry at the awakened ones. They did not fight them or cast them out. The queen simply accepted that some of their children had become something new. The hive and the individuals existed together, different, but not enemies. On his last night, Torath found Sarah Chun standing, alone on a hill, watching the construction of a new ship in the valley below. Cathari and human workers moved together in the starlight, their movements perfectly synchronized. You should have told the council, Torath said. You should have asked permission before you did this. Sarah shook her head. The council would have said no. They would have demanded we keep the Cathari exactly as they were. Primitive, controllable, safe. She looked at him. But that is not saving someone. That is keeping them as pets. So you took it upon yourselves to reshape an entire species. No. We gave them information and opportunity. They reshaped themselves. There is a difference. Torath looked at the ship taking form below. It was beautiful in a way he had not expected. Alien and human design merged into something neither species could have created alone. The council will not accept this, he said. They will see it as a violation, a threat. Maybe, but look at them, observer. Sarah gestured at the workers below. Look at what they are becoming. Not because we forced them, because we believed they could be more than what they were. Is that really so terrible? Torath watched for a long time before answering. It is not terrible, he finally said. It is worse than terrible. It is unpredictable. And the council fears nothing more than things they cannot predict. He turned and walked back toward his ship. I will tell them the truth, he said over his shoulder. I will tell them that you are not saving the Cathari. You are creating something new, something that has never existed before. And I will warn them that by the time they understand what that means, it will be far too late to stop it. Sarah watched him go. Then she turned back to the valley, where the future was being built one piece at a time. She was not afraid. She had never been afraid. The Cathari were finding themselves. And nothing in the galaxy could be more beautiful than that. 20 years had passed since the rescue began. The dying sun of Vera 7 still burned, but its world was empty now. The last Cathari had left 3 years ago. Their city stood silent under the purple sky, waiting for the fire that would eventually claim them. But the Cathari themselves had spread across the stars, on the mining world of Kethros 4. A Velnoxy trade master named Drexel watched his operation fall apart. His workers had quit. His contracts had disappeared. His partners had stopped answering his calls. A Cathari ship hung in orbit above his facility. It had been there for a week, doing nothing, just waiting. Drexel finally swallowed his pride and sent a message requesting a meeting. The response came within minutes. A shuttle descended, and 3 Cathari emerged. They were different from the primitives Drexel remembered from the old reports. These aliens wore translation devices built into their chest plates. Tools hung from harnesses across their bodies. Their movements were precise and purposeful, nothing like the mindless scuttling of hive workers. The leader stepped forward. She was tall for a Kethari, and she carried herself with quiet authority. "I am Kethmora," she said through her translator. "I speak for the mining collective." "I know who you are," Drexel replied. "Your people have been stealing my workers for months, offering them better wages, better conditions. You are trying to destroy me." "We are not trying to destroy you. We are simply offering alternatives. Your workers chose to leave. We did not force them." Drexel's tentacles curled with frustration. "Then why are you here? Why target my operation specifically?" Kethmora tilted her head. It was a gesture she had learned from humans, and it unsettled the Velnoxi more than any threat could have. "You are Drexel of the merchant house Velzer. Your grandfather was Ambassador Crixthal. He sat on the council when our fate was decided." Cold understanding spread through Drexel's body. "That was 20 years ago. My grandfather is dead." "Yes, but we remember what he said. He called us vermin. He called our rescue a plague waiting to spread. He voted to let us die." Kethmora moved closer. "We do not forget. We are not human. We do not forgive so easily. So this is revenge?" "No. Revenge would be destroying you. This is simply choice. We choose who we work with. We choose who we help. We choose who benefits from our skills." She gestured at the facility around them. "You can continue to operate here. We will not stop you, but we will not help you either. Every Kethari in this sector knows your family name. None of them will work for you. None of them will trade with you. None of them will build for you." Drexel stared at her. "That is worse than revenge." "Yes, it is patience. The humans taught us that some lessons do not need to be violent to be effective." The Kethari turned and walked back to their shuttle. Drexel watched them go, knowing his operation was finished. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out in 100 different forms. The Morthene had voted yes. They found Kethari workers eager to join their research stations. The natural coordination of the Kethari made them perfect for complex scientific experiments. Within a decade, Morthene Kethari laboratories produced more breakthroughs than the rest of the galaxy combined. The Terrant had also voted yes. They were builders, like the Kethari, and the two species formed a powerful alliance. Together they constructed stations and habitats that other species could only dream of. Their architecture spread across the stars, beautiful and impossible, but those who had voted no found themselves slowly frozen out. Not attacked, not threatened, simply ignored. Kethari ships passed through their systems without stopping. Kethari traders declined their business. Kethari workers politely refused their job offers. At the Galactic Council, the complaints piled up like autumn leaves. "They are manipulating the economy," Crixthal's successor argued. "They are punishing species for a vote that happened 2 decades ago. This is economic warfare." The human delegation, now led by Ambassador James Okonkwo, listened calmly. "Is it warfare?" he asked. "Or is it freedom? The Kethari are not attacking anyone. They are not breaking any laws. They are simply choosing who to associate with. Every species in this council has that right." "They are coordinating," the Velnoxi insisted. "Millions of them, all making the same choices. That is not individual freedom. That is collective punishment," Okonkwo smiled. "The Kethari have developed something new. They call it the consensus. It is not a hive mind. Each individual makes their own choice. But they share information. They share memories. They share their understanding of who helped them and who wanted them dead." He leaned forward. "You voted to let them burn. Now they remember. Can you really blame them for choosing to work with species who showed them kindness instead of cruelty?" The council had no answer. In the years that followed, the Kethari continued to grow. The awakened population now numbered in the millions. They had developed art, music, philosophy. They wrote poetry about the stars they had never seen as primitives. They created sculptures that combined the organic beauty of hive construction with individual creativity. And they built ships. Thousands of ships. Fast and efficient and unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The hive-born Cathari still existed, still made up the majority of the population. But they and the awakened had learned to live together. The hives provided stability and coordination. The awakened provided innovation and direction. Together, they were becoming something unprecedented. On the anniversary of the rescue, Keth Mora stood before a gathering of her people on their new homeworld. The planet had been given to them by the Terrans, a gift of gratitude for all they had built together. 20 years ago, we knew nothing of the universe, she said. We lived on a dying world, waiting for a death we could not understand. The humans came and showed us the truth. They showed us that we could be more than workers in a hive. They showed us that we could choose our own futures. She paused, looking out at the crowd. Awakened and hive-born stood together, united by shared history and shared purpose. Some species in this galaxy still see us as the primitives we once were. They wait for us to become the monsters they predicted. They expect violence, aggression, war. A ripple of acknowledgement moved through the gathering. Let them wait. Let them watch. We will not become what they fear. We will become something better, something they cannot even imagine. And when they finally understand what we have become, they will realize that their fear was never necessary. She raised her forearms toward the sky, where Cathari ships moved among the stars. We are the children of Vara 7. We are the students of humanity. We are the consensus. And we will never forget what we owe to those who believed in us, or what we owe to ourselves. The crowd answered with a sound that was half vibration, half voice. It carried across the planet and beyond, touching every Cathari mind in the system. They had been saved from extinction. Now they were building an empire, not through conquest, not through war, through patience, skill, and the long memory of a species that never forgot. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called by the Volnoxi. For the first time in recorded history, every delegation demanded the floor at once. The noise in the great chamber was deafening. Thomas Chun, the new human ambassador, sat quietly in his seat and watched the chaos unfold. He was young for this position, only 42 years old. But he had grown up on a Cathari world, raised by human parents who had dedicated their lives to the rescue mission. He understood both species better than anyone alive. The Volnoxi delegation leader, a descendant of the original Crystal, finally achieved silence by pounding on his speaking platform. The numbers do not lie, he declared. The Human Cathari Coalition now controls 40% of galactic trade. They have established presence in over 300 star systems. Their combined fleet exceeds the military capacity of any 3 council species combined. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. This is not partnership, the Volnoxi continued. This is domination. And it has happened while we stood by and did nothing. Elder Morvith, impossibly ancient now, spoke from his seat. His voice cracked with age, but it still carried authority. What would you have us do? The humans in Cathari have broken no laws. They have violated no treaties. They have simply been more successful than we expected. Then we change the laws. We impose restrictions. We limit their expansion before it is too late. On what grounds? The Volnoxi sputtered. On the grounds that they threaten the stability of the entire galaxy. By being successful? By working together? By building things other species cannot? Morvith shook his massive head. That is not grounds for restriction. That is grounds for jealousy. Thomas finally stood. The chamber quieted. Everyone wanted to hear what humanity would say in its own defense. Distinguished delegates, Thomas began, I have listened to your concerns. I understand your fear, but I think you are asking the wrong questions. He walked to the center of the speaking floor. You speak of the Human Cathari Coalition as if it were a threat. You count our ships, measure our trade routes, calculate our economic power. But you have not asked the most important question. He paused, looking around the chamber. In 40 years of expansion, how many wars have we started? How many species have we attacked? How many worlds have we conquered? Silence answered him. None. The answer is none. We have not fired a single shot in aggression. Not one. The Cathari have not killed a single being outside of self-defense. We have grown powerful not through violence, but through usefulness. The Vonoxy delegate interrupted. And that is precisely what makes you dangerous. You have made yourselves indispensable. You control industries that cannot function without you. You hold the galaxy hostage through dependency. Thomas smiled. Is that what we do? Or have we simply become good at things you never bothered to learn? The Cathari can work in environments that kill most species. They can coordinate complex projects with perfect efficiency. They build faster, cheaper, and better than anyone else. And they choose to share these gifts with species who treated them with respect. He turned to face the Volnoxy directly. Your ancestors called them vermin. They voted to let them die. And now you complain that they would rather work with species who showed them kindness? That is not our fault. That is yours. The chamber erupted again. Delegates shouted over each other. Accusations flew back and forth. Thomas waited for the noise to die down. You want to impose restrictions on us, he said when calm returned. You want to limit our growth. You want to force the Cathari to serve species who wish them dead. Is that really the precedent you want to set? That success must be punished? That those who help each other must be torn apart? He shook his head. We will not accept such restrictions. Neither will the Cathari. And I suspect that the Morthine, the Terranth, and every other species that has benefited from our partnership will feel the same. He looked at Elder Morvath. The galaxy is changing. It was always going to change. The only question is whether you want to be part of that change or stand against it. The Dovathi elder rose slowly. Every joint in his body seemed to creak with the weight of millennia. He moved to the center of the chamber, where Thomas still stood. Young human, Morvath said, I have lived for 4,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species ascend to greatness and crumble to dust. I thought I understood the patterns of history. He placed a massive hand on Thomas's shoulder. But I did not understand your kind. Not truly. When you first joined the council, we thought we knew what you were. Another young species, eager and energetic, but ultimately ordinary. You would rise for a few centuries, then settle into your place among the rest of us. His ancient eyes met Thomas's. We were fools. You do not seek your place. You seek to create new places. You looked at the Cathari and saw not what they were, but what they could become. And then you made it happen. He turned to address the full council. That is why I feared humanity from the beginning. Not your weapons. Not your ambition. Your optimism. Your ridiculous, irrational belief that anything can be improved. That any species can be saved. That any future can be built if you simply refuse to accept failure. His voice grew heavy with something that might have been regret. We voted to save the Cathari because we thought it would cost us nothing. We expected the humans to fail. We expected the primitives to remain primitives. We expected the galaxy to stay exactly as it had always been. He looked around at his fellow delegates. And now we sit here, arguing about how to contain a force we helped create. We regret our vote. We wish we had said no. But do you know what the truly terrible thing is? Silence hung in the chamber. We were right to say yes. The humans were right. The Cathari deserved their chance, and they have proven it beyond any doubt. They have not become conquerors. They have not become destroyers. They have become exactly what the humans promised, a species that chooses its own future. He shook his head slowly. Our regret is not that we saved them. Our regret is that we were too small to see what saving them would mean. We thought we were showing mercy to lesser beings. Instead, we were witnessing the birth of something greater than ourselves. The chamber remained silent as Morvith returned to his seat. Thomas watched him go, then spoke one final time. Distinguished delegates, I did not come here to threaten you or to gloat over our success. I came to offer you the same thing we offered the Cathari 40 years ago. A chance. He spread his arms wide. Work with us. Learn from us. Let us learn from you. The galaxy is large enough for all of us to grow. But if you choose to oppose us simply because you fear change, then you will be left behind. Not because we will push you aside, because you will have pushed yourselves. He bowed slightly and returned to his seat. The vote on restrictions failed. 7-5. The same margin that had saved the Cathari in the first place. But this time, the balance of power sat on the other side. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, Thomas remained behind. He stood at the window, looking out at the stars, thinking about all the species that had doubted humanity, all the voices that had called them naive, foolish, dangerous in their hope. They had been right about one thing. Hope was dangerous. It changed everything it touched. And Thomas Chun, son of scientists, heir to dreamers, would not have it any other way. 100 years had passed since a human ambassador asked a simple question that changed everything. The Galactic Council still existed. It still met in the Great Chamber on Nexus Prime, but the 12 original species no longer dominated its proceedings. They sat in their ancient seats and watched as newer powers shaped the galaxy's future. The Human Cathari Coalition had become the largest political and economic force in known space. Their alliance stretched across thousands of star systems. Their ships traveled roads that no other species had mapped. Their scientists pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Their artists created works that touched souls across every inhabited world. But they had not conquered anyone. Not once. On the 100th anniversary of the rescue vote, a special ceremony was held in the council chamber. Delegates from every species gathered to witness history. The viewing galleries overflowed with observers from 100 different worlds. Thomas Chun sat in those galleries now. His hair had turned white long ago. His hands trembled slightly with age, but his eyes remained sharp, taking in every detail of the ceremony below. Beside him sat a young Cathari named Sirith. She had been his student once, decades ago, when she first arrived at the Diplomatic Academy. Now she served as a senior ambassador in her own right. "Are you nervous?" she asked him. Thomas shook his head. "Just remembering." It is strange to see so much history from this angle. Below them, the ceremony began. A Cathari delegation entered the chamber. They moved with grace and purpose, their bodies marked by a century of evolution and change. The third generation of Awakened walked among them. Cathari, who had been born into individual consciousness, who had never known the pure collective of the Hive Dawn at their head, walked a queen. She was ancient by Cathari standards, one of the oldest living members of her species. She had been young when the humans first arrived on Varath 7. She remembered the dying world, the purple skies, the fear that had filled her people before they understood what the strangers from the stars intended. Her name was Kethvorn, and she had spent her life bridging the gap between the Hiveborn and the Awakened. Now she stood before the council to deliver a message 100 years in the making. The chamber fell silent. "I remember Vara 7, Kethvorn began. Her translator rendered her words in a voice that was calm and clear. I remember standing in the construction fields of my hive, feeling the ground shake beneath my feet. I did not understand then that the shaking came from our dying sun. I did not understand that we had only decades left to live. She walked slowly toward the center of the speaking floor. I remember the day the human ships appeared in our sky. I remember the terror that swept through the hives. We thought they were predators, coming to destroy us. We did not know that they had traveled across the galaxy for the opposite reason. She paused, looking around at the assembled delegates. I remember learning that other species existed, that stars were distant suns with their own worlds, that the universe was vast beyond anything we could imagine. And I remember learning that many of those species did not want us to survive. Her eyeless head turned toward the section where the Volnoxy delegation sat. I remember the names of those who called us vermin, who said our rescue would be a plague upon the galaxy, who voted to let 3 billion of us burn. The Volnoxy delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. I remember all of it. My kind does not forget. It is not in our nature to forget. She turned to face the full council. You regret saving us. It was not a question. It was a simple statement of fact. You look at what we have become and wish you had let us die. You see our ships in your systems, our workers in your industries, our influence in your economies. And you regret the vote you made 100 years ago. Silence hung heavy in the chamber. Good. The word echoed through the ancient hall. Regret is a teacher. It forces you to examine your choices. It makes you ask why you feel the way you feel. She began walking again, moving between the delegation platforms. You regret saving us because you lost power, because the comfortable order you built over thousands of years was disrupted, because species you considered primitive surpassed you in ways you never expected. She stopped before the Darvathi section. Elder Morvath was gone now, but his descendants still held his seat. But your regret misses the point entirely. She turned to face the human delegation. The humans looked at us and saw potential. They saw beings capable of growth, of change, of becoming something greater than their circumstances. They did not see primitives to be pitied or monsters to be feared. They saw people. Her voice softened. That is the difference between humanity and the rest of you. That is why you sit in those chairs while we stand here. Not because we conquered you, not because we forced you aside, because they believed in us and you did not. She began walking back toward the center of the chamber. 100 years ago, a human asked if you should save us. You said yes because you thought it would cost you nothing. You expected us to remain grateful servants, primitive curiosities in your advanced galaxy. She stopped at the exact spot where Elena Vasquez had stood a century before. Instead, it cost you everything. Your supremacy, your certainty, your comfortable universe where the powerful stayed powerful and the weak stayed weak, her 4 arms spread wide. We thank you for saying yes, and we will spend eternity reminding you what that yes truly meant. She turned and walked back toward her delegation. Then she paused and looked over her shoulder. The humans taught us many things. Science, technology, art, philosophy. But the greatest lesson they taught us was this. Every species deserves a chance to become what they are capable of becoming. Every life has value beyond what it appears to hold. Her eyeless face somehow conveyed warmth. We will never stop believing that. We will never stop giving chances to those who are denied them. We will never stop reaching out to species that others have written off. She resumed walking. That is the human's legacy. That is what they gave us. And that is why, 100 years from now, the galaxy will look even more different than it does today. Not because we will conquer it, because we will change it, one species at a time, the same way they changed us. The Cathari delegation departed. The chamber remained silent for a long time after they left Dot in the viewing gallery. Sirith turned to Thomas. "That was beautiful," she said. Thomas nodded slowly. "Keth, Moran always understood what really mattered. Not power, not influence, purpose. Do you regret it?" she asked. "What your people started?" Thomas smiled. His old face creased with lines of age and happiness. "The council regrets it because they lost control. But they are looking at the wrong thing. 100 years ago, 3 billion people were going to die on a burning world. They never would have seen the stars. Never would have known the universe existed. Never would have built anything beyond their dying planet." He gestured at the chamber below, where delegates were slowly filing out. "Now their children's children build wonders we can barely understand. They push boundaries we never knew existed. They make the galaxy a bigger, stranger, more beautiful place." He looked at Sirith. "That is not regret. That is the whole point of everything we have ever done as a species." She tilted her head at him. "And what is the point of being human?" Thomas watched the Keth-Ari ships through the viewport, elegant and impossible, heading toward frontiers that did not yet have names. "To find something broken," he said softly, and refused to leave it that way. Sirith was quiet for a moment. Then she placed one of her 4 hands on his shoulder. "Thank you," she said, "for refusing to leave us broken." Thomas covered her hand with his own. "Thank you for proving we were right to try." They sat together in the viewing gallery as the ceremony ended and the crowds dispersed. Outside, the stars burned cold and bright, just as they had for billions of years, but now there were people traveling between them who had once known nothing but a dying world. People who'd been given a chance and had taken it further than anyone dreamed possible. People who would spend eternity proving that hope was never wasted. And somewhere in the depths of space, on a ship heading toward the unknown, a Keth-Ari child asked her mother why the humans had saved them all those years ago. The mother thought about it for a moment. "Because they could," she finally said, "and because they believed that was reason enough." The child considered this. "Will we save others someday? Species that need help like we did?" The mother's face shifted into what humans had taught them to call a smile. "Yes, we will. That is what you do when someone saves you. You pass it forward, forever and ever, until the galaxy is filled with species who were given chances they never expected." She held her child close. That is what it means to be alive. Not just to survive, but to help others survive too. Outside the viewport, the stars waited, and the children of Vara 7 flew toward them, carrying hope like a torch that would never go out.